I love this set of sentences. This is so fake deep. So I shook my regretful thoughts from my head and cast them to the wind. There's no sense regretting something you can't change. Yeah, you just know 17-year-old me was like, nice. Hello, and welcome back to Rewrite and Republish, where I am rereading my very first book I ever published, and I'm trying to fix it. If you're just joining us here, I recommend that you go back and you watch the first video where I give more detail on why I'm doing this, how this happened, all of that good stuff. But to make a long story short, I wrote this book for the first time when I was 17 and 18. I published it when I was 21, and then the publisher went under, and I haven't touched it since. And then when I went and I reread it, I didn't like it. So instead of just brushing it up and re-self-publishing it, I have to do like a full-scale rewrite. And y'all are coming along with me. We already read through the first couple of chapters in episode 2. And today we're going to read through more. I don't know how many, at least 2 more chapters. Cheers, y'all. Can y'all tell that I just woke up? Because I did. I've been out of bed for like 30 minutes and I simply don't feel like putting on makeup today. And that's just what we're going to do. My cat is coming to visit. I don't think that you can see her. She's just going to be generally disruptive. Here she is. Okay. Chapter 3. So my main character's made a pact with the god of mischief in order to stop a war. And one thing that I don't like about this is how just absolutely upfront he is with her from the very beginning. I feel like a god of mischief should have more secretive motivations. He definitely has a few secrets, but he's just very much in this chapter like, yes, let me give you all the details of what we need to do. And I definitely want to change that in the new book. I also feel like I need to develop some consistencies with each god's powers and what kind of magic they can do, because I have a bunch of his abilities demonstrated here, but it does feel a little bit random and a lot of it for the sake of humor. So even though there's like a lot of talking and explaining things, it makes sense why it's being explained, and also it's relatively interesting. So I'm not hating this chapter. The main thing is it's constantly punctuated by the main character's sassy commentary, which I think I can pull down. She's still gonna be sassy. I don't want to take away her sassiness, but just like a normal amount, probably, and not an amount decided by a 17-year-old trying to be funny. Yeah, she'll just have moments in her narration where it's like, wow, never thought I'd write those 3 words. And it's just like, don't explain the joke. Just let it sit, Janet. She also, for some reason, gets really freaked out by the god of mischief hovering, which all things considered seems like a really normal thing for a god to be able to do, so that's a misplaced reaction. I don't know if I still want minor gods in this universe. The existence of the minor gods were to give me like random and very powerful people outside of the gods themselves. Like basically just smaller, more powerful people that I could use as threats and that the gods could kind of be sending around. However, I think that the role of the minor gods is filled by the role of other characters who come in later. And honestly, based on the system that I've established and how the gods came to be, having minor gods doesn't really make a lot of sense in the world building. I think I was being too beholden to like Percy Jackson on that one, where it's like, oh, there's other gods who aren't part of like the big pantheon or whatever. Okay, end of chapter 3. There are 2 main issues at play here. One is the entire plot of this novel, so it's really easy to fix. And the other is why the main character, why Janet, is the one that has to be involved. The god of mischief's entire plan here is he wants to stop a godly war. He's been banned from talking about it to any of his other fellow gods. So he needs a human to basically persuade the gods for him because he's been banned. The big problem with this is that doesn't feel like that should be the full plan. His entire plot should not be resting on the persuasive skills of this human. And one of Janet's traits is that she's supposed to be very persuasive and very charismatic. Did I write her that way? Not really, but I have to write her that way. So it does make sense still that he would be trying to use a human to appeal to the other gods because he can't. He's trying to find a loophole that's very god of mischief. But I think that needs to be a smokescreen for a larger plan he's doing. He's the god of mischief. He needs layers on layers of plans. There needs to be layers on layers of secrets. So I do think I have an idea of what his actual ultimate goal is, and he's not going to let Janet in on that in this first chapter. As for why Janet is the one that he seeks out, I think that by having her do a successful heist, that will help. And then I also think the fact that then all of her friends get arrested, there are high stakes for her, which is why he chooses her, because she needs to save her friends. He needs a good thief, he needs somebody who's charismatic, and he needs somebody who's a little bit desperate. And he might have a couple of other secret motivations as well. But that was probably the least problematic chapter so far. In general, like, I liked the back and forth between the God of Mischief and Janet. Even though they were annoying at points. I think maybe I'm just adjusting to the voice. Moving on to chapter 4. I love this set of sentences. This is so fake deep. So I shook my regretful thoughts from my head and cast them to the wind. There's no sense regretting something you can't change. Yeah, you just know 17-year-old me was like, nice. I love to comment for myself based on how much time passes, because I make a comment as Janet that's like, this is going to be a long week. And I said, have we considered making it longer? Because yes, this all takes place over such a quick period of time that I'm like, we don't need to have it be that quick, actually. The stakes are high, but they're not that high. Eee. And now we're getting to Janet's mother. Oh boy, okay. So, Janet's mother is in the business of pleasure. Again, maybe because teenage me was not prepared to tackle this topic. And I very much want to shift this from being an issue of this profession into being an issue of class. The problem isn't that her mother is in this profession. The problem is that because she is from like the outer rings and the much lower class, that there are very few protections for people in her profession, which means things get a lot worse. But yeah, it's like there's interesting stuff here. It's just not what a teenager was prepared to tackle. Also, you guys can kind of see what I mean when I say I want to take this from being a young adult novel and into an adult novel, because again, I just feel probably that an adult novel is a little bit more equipped to dive into this very complicated issue. But yeah, nobody raised red flags. No one at all. I talked about this book at my old high school. I read the summary and it mentions it. Crazy. Okay, I think we're going to do one more chapter. We can fit in one more chapter today. I've been going through them a little bit quicker. They haven't been quite as long as chapter 2. Yeah, okay. Speaking of issues that I probably shouldn't have been tackling in a young adult novel, Janet drinks so much and has an incredible tolerance for alcohol. She's 18. Janet specifically is like participating in drinking competitions, and she's very good at them. I feel like that'll just feel less problematic to write about if she's in her 20s, you know? But also because Janet is very used to being in these situations of like taverns and parties and that kind of thing, it's kind of weird that she reacts to it with some amount of shock and overwhelm. She's like, oh, this is an obstacle course for the intoxicated, and she's being a little bit judgy. And it's like, Janet, you drink here all the time. Janet, we've established that you're a partier. You know who wasn't a partier? Me at 17. We introduced the goddess of festivities here, who I do love. I think she is one of the characters that has aged the best in this book. I think her whole vibe is inspired by that scene in Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Marion is absolutely crushing a guy 3 times her size in a drinking competition. That scene changed something in my brain, and I won't apologize for it. In the middle of this party, at one point, Janet notices that there's like a hooded man with eyes that seem to be glowing red. And she just kind of lets that go. She's like, dang, that's crazy. And then she just gets distracted immediately. Foreshadowing is a literary device. Janet challenges the goddess of festivities to like a combination drinking/knife throwing competition, which is pretty fun. Oh God, I found another typo! Why? I really do forget that there was a time before I was like an English teacher, and also before I had a lot more experience editing, where I would just miss stuff like this. I read this so many times. How did I miss this? And more importantly, why did several editors miss this? Anyway, she passes out from the drinking competition, but she does get an audience with the goddess of festivities. Again, not my least favorite chapter. I think a lot of it will be fixed by me simply making Janet an adult age. The big thing that I do want to look at changing, as I have it written right now, it seems just so normal that the gods regularly are just walking among humans for fun. I think that that should be a little bit more of a rumor. Like, I think there should be select humans that are aware of it and, you know, have been sworn to secrecy or that kind of thing. But mostly it's just like rumored stuff. And a lot of people are like, nah, the gods don't come down. So yeah, having the gods just disguise themselves a little more and not have people being like, yeah, that's the goddess of merriment. I'm going to challenge her to the drinking competition. At the very least, it needs to feel kind of extraordinary to Janet that she is able to talk to these gods in like a human form. All right, big takeaways from these chapters today. Number 1, aging up Janet is a great choice, both for diving into the topics around her being raised by her mother, who's in the profession that she's in, and also for the drinking reasons. I think I need to get rid of minor gods as an overall concept. And I need to make the major gods of the pantheon a little bit more mysterious. There's a lot of lore in this that I'm keeping in the first chapter that I read, but the overall premise needs to be given additional stakes. I need more layers to the plot to make it more interesting, because as the plot is now, there's just not a lot of heft to it. So much of it is just Janet has to convince gods to care about humanity. Anyway, that's all today. I've read through 5 chapters of this book. We have many more to go. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy writing.